Okay, this week is a lot about geometric constructions and using the constraints to create our parts. And so for this tutorial, we're going to do a gasket. So we want to start a new metric standard millimeter part file. There we go. Okay. And we're going to do a new sketch on our XY plane. And let's see, we'll do some lines. Uh, Sizes are not just that critical. I'm going to do that with horizontal. Come down so they're perpendicular, over perpendicular, down again perpendicular, and then back across perpendicular. Okay. Then we're going to put a circle over here. And see, I don't want it to snap to any of the other corners, so I'm going to come out here and put in a circle. Now I want to draw a line, and on my circle here, I want to get a coincident constraint. So when I get that little yellow pop-up, it tells me it's coincident. And I'm going to pull it down. I'm going to go coincident to this horizontal line. Okay, so I've got those two coincident constraints. Let's see. This didn't quite look out right. So I'm going to move this line in. Okay. So you see those constraints stayed. Okay, things just kind of moved around a little bit. And I want to move my circle. Oh, it's getting bigger. Because of the constraints over there. So I can move these things around, okay, by grabbing the endpoints. So you see, I can move these things. Now, often when we're sketching, we just have to sketch a rough shape. It doesn't have to be to our exact size as we're creating things. We can sketch it just roughly and then apply dimensions to it. So let's put a couple of dimensions here from this line to the center of my circle. All right. And I'm not setting anything or changing anything right now. I do want to, let's see, next, let's make this tangent to the circle. So let's go up here, tangent constraint, line and circle. Okay, and see it pushed this edge back out a little bit. It maintained that same dimension. And let's do a little trimming and extending. So let's extend this line over. Okay, that looks good. Now let's trim that little corner off right there. And see it applied a constraint right there to the corners. So if I were to drag this line now, see it drags this out with it. Okay. And we've got perpendicular constraints applied. I can right click and go show all constraints. So these are going to stay at right angles. That's tangent, that's coincident, and that's coincident. And that one is horizontal. That was the first one that I drew in. I'm looking at my notes. All right. We have the ability to do auto dimensioning. I don't know if you've seen that yet or not, but we can go auto dimension, and we just hit apply. You see it puts a dimension to everything, and sometimes they're kind of strange, like this one right here, 69.65 to the end of that angle. So sometimes auto dimension will work good for you. Sometimes it's not so great because it just applies things. So I'm going to go remove, and it'll pull all of those back out. All right, now then, let's see what else we need to do. Let's trim this circle right here. Oh. Trim that, And we'll put a couple of more dimensions on here. Just so that we've got some dimensions that we're going to play with when we go to building this thing later. And I want to come out to that point. We've got that one. Let's put a radius. Let's put a radius on that. Now, one thing we can do is we can go to here and apply a 0 dimension, and that makes those parallel with each other, or coincident, or collinear, sorry. Yeah, that won't work. Okay, so let's pull that 0 dimension back because we do want that lined up with that. Okay, so now we just kind of got a rough shape. We got some dimensions applied to it. Okay, so now I want to apply fillets, and we want 20 millimeters. Put one up here, one in this corner, one down here, and then one there. Okay. We still have 2 dimensions needed for it to be fully constrained, and I'll tell you what happens is we can move this thing around. And we always want our sketch to be fully constrained so it can't move. Often it's good to anchor it somehow to the origin right here. But it doesn't always work out good that way. So what we can do is we can apply a fixed constraint to the center point of that circle. And see, that locks its location in an XY coordinate system. And so now we're fully constrained. All right, so now I want to go in and edit my dimensions to get this thing to the right size that I want. And it's always good to start with the largest dimensions first when you're doing that. So I'm going to start with this one and make it 200. So that sketched it way out. This 45. This one 180. 120. 50. And 40. And that looks like a good shape. We're fully constrained. And now we want to extrude this to a 5 millimeter thickness. 5 millimeters. And so there's our part. Now to create our gasket, we want to do an offset with a cut feature. So we're going to go with a new sketch on the front surface there. And we're going to go project geometry. And if I select the front face, it chooses the entire perimeter. See, now it's highlighted in yellow. Now I can go offset and choose that projected geometry and drag it in. And you see as you drag it, it keeps it all constrained together. And we want to pull that in 15 millimeters in. Now you see it made everything parallel and it's totally constrained there. There's no need to dimension anything because that one dimension took care of it all. Okay, and so now I want to extrude that or make a cut. Choose that inside profile, cut, all. Okay, and so now I've got my gasket. That looks kind of good. But now if I need to make a change to the size of this thing, say something has changed in our design, I can come back, let's see, let's show dimensions from our first sketch, and let's make this 150. Why is my little update thingy not coming up? There it is. Okay, it finally came up. All right. And so now you can see I've changed the overall size, and then the offset stayed parallel with that. Okay, so you're going to create this based on the video, and you can pause it to get the sizes. And then when you submit it, that height should be 150 between here. And you'll submit this according to the instructions in Blackboard.